is Gangrene Blitz with your host, Joe Mauceri.
Well, Tyrod Taylor takes over at quarterback for Gangrene, and the Jets looked pretty good for a half of football, but they do play two halves in the NFL, so it wasn't the ending Gangrene was looking for. Down in Baltimore against the Ravens. Joining me each and every week here on the Gangrene Blitz, NFL reporter for the New York Post, Ryan Dunleavy. Ryan, you were confident that the Jets were going to take this one, right?
Nope. I was confident. I was just as confident the Jets would lose at halftime as I was confident the Giants would lose with 12 minutes left in the game. So this is New York football, where on an NFL Sunday, Brandon Nimmo is the main story.
Oh my goodness, that is crazy. But you are right. That was the main story yesterday when it was all said and done.
Only in New York is a baseball trade stealing an NFL Sunday with two teams.
Yeah. To be fair though, Brandon Nimmo, great Met.
Super nice guy.
Awesome. Excellent interview. Stand up. I mean, come on. Who runs out a bunt to first base the way, a walk to first base the way Brandon Nimmo does? Yeah. Nobody. It's wonderful. All right. Let's talk about the Ets curse, I guess. From the Mets to the Jets here. Tyrod Taylor takes over the reins of this offense. You've been saying it since before the season started. He gives the Jets the best chance to win. They had a chance. What'd you make of Tyrod back at the reins for this offense?
It's okay. I mean, he was better. He threw for 222 yards, which is like 5 Justin Fields games. But he wasn't spectacular. I've seen him play better. I've seen him play for the Giants in games where he's pushing the ball downfield. I thought he was okay. 17 to 28, touchdown. John Mechie looks like a good find for the Jets.
I don't want to say that I was a really big fan of that signing, but I was a really big fan of that signing.
Yeah. I mean, look, Breece Hall had the huge fumble. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. That coulda, shoulda, woulda been another scoring drive. But, look, I thought Tyrod played like what I think he is, which is like the 30th best quarterback in the NFL or whatever. So good enough to be a starter, but not good enough to be a high-end starter. And you're playing a team like the Ravens, who are red hot and fighting for their playoff lives.
Yeah, and it looked like they were just kind of playing to the competition, taking a little bit of a break here in the first half of this one. But I want to talk about the offense for a second, because regardless of what Tyrod did in his personal numbers, what did you think of the play calling from the Jets in this one? Because at times with Justin Fields obviously at the helm, they weren't even calling passing plays in passing situations. And even if they did, whether or not he was actually going to throw the ball was something that remained to be seen. So, given the fact you have to evaluate for next season, what did you think?
It.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is, Joe. Like you said when we started, like, best chance to win, and that's what I thought week one. Tyrod gave him the best chance to win. Like, now the Jets aren't going to win, right? They don't even need to win. But like, what's winning? Like,
but what is winning? We're going to get deep on this show here. Very philosophical.
But yeah, I actually have some phone calls out about that topic, so we'll read about that later in the post.
All right.
Yeah, so he gives them the best chance to evaluate their guys. You said it. Like, that's what Tyrod does. Like, they call a pass, he throws the pass, he makes the right read, he goes through his checkdowns. So, like, all of a sudden, a little bit more about Mechie. You feel a little bit better about Mason Taylor. Adonai Mitchell can get a little confidence because he had 2 catches instead of the drops he had against the Patriots. So, like, you can balance it. Teams aren't just teeing off on the run. Like, that's what really playing Tyrod Taylor is about. It's not even about winning. It's about evaluating anyway. So, I thought the play calling was fine. It looked more like traditional NFL football. They might have had a little too much faith in Tyrod and the offense early in the third quarter when they went for that 4th down on their own 42-yard line, and that's really what flipped the game.
All right. I'm going to ask you one more question before, even though that would have been a perfect segue. But you mentioned evaluations here. Who do you think is under the microscope the most with Tyrod Taylor there? Because you threw a few names out there, but is it a position player? Is it a coach? Is it a unit?
Yeah, it's Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator, because he couldn't get anything going with Justin Fields. Obviously, Aaron Glenn is gonna be retained. So is he gonna stay loyal to his coaching staff the way that Dan Campbell stayed loyal to him when they were 3-13? Is he gonna make a change? He's probably not gonna make a change on the defense because that's like his baby. So like, if he wants to throw a pound of flesh to fans, if he wants to make a big change that says this year was unacceptable, it's going to be Tanner Engstrand on the offense. He has to decide if Tanner Engstrand is the guy he wants to develop next year's number one overall or number one first round draft pick. So I think what Tanner is able to do with Tyrod could go a long way to saying like, oh, okay, this guy does know how to establish a rhythm, does know how to balance run and pass, does know when to take shots, because you couldn't really tell that with Justin Fields. And with Tyrod, you should be able to give a better view on what and who Tanner Engstrand wants to be as a play caller.
Do you give him any credit, Engstrand, for the fact that when he's realizing that Justin Fields is lost out there, he comes up with the, scheme against, I guess, New England, the first possession? Like, because I think a lot of times we talk about the scripted plays, right, that come out, and that's really where the offensive coordinator puts it in advance, and he can really plan and prepare for those. So when you see stuff like that from him, or, you had time to prepare for Pittsburgh in week 1, and that was probably the high watermark for Justin Fields-led offense here.
You get some credit for that, but that's not the number one. The number one thing I want my play callers and coordinators is being able to adjust on the fly. My sense being around the NFL for 8 years is that most of these guys can do a pretty good job scripting plays in a week. Like an opening drive is really the 10 plays you ran the most during the practice week. Right. I want to know once you're punched in the mouth in the second quarter and there are other teams doing things that you can't do, if you can adjust. And we weren't seeing that with Engstrand and Fields, and I don't know if it was Engstrand or Fields or 50-50, but I think I know enough about Tyrod Taylor to know that I'll get a good read on Tanner Engstrand.
All right, well, it doesn't bode well for him then, the way the second half went down. But let's talk about that key play you were talking about in the third quarter. The Jets deciding to go for it on fourth down. They were trailing by 3 at the time there. Aaron Glenn came out and basically said he had full confidence in his offense. Here's what he had to say about that decision after the game.
At that point, just thinking about the defense and how I thought the defense was playing really, really well at that point. The reason that they scored because they got the 3rd and 15 on that. And I thought our offense was doing a solid job. I thought Tyrod was doing a solid job. So I want to be aggressive. I want to be able to go on that. And we didn't make it. I always talk to Tanner, and I give him my thought of, man, listen, if we get to this such and such on fourth down, man, I'm going. If not, man, we're going to punt it, or we're going to kick the field goal. We're going to take the point. So there's always conversations at that point of what my thought process is, and I think that's always worked well for us because it also gives him the opportunity to sequence his play calling, exactly like you just said. So it's one of those things, man, where it didn't work out.
I want to be a part of those conversations when they were in London and deciding what to do at the end of the half there. Like, I mean, I don't know. He says he wants to be aggressive now. We've seen him be one of the most passive coaches in the NFL. And this is a game where your defense is playing well. It looks like it's going to be an all-out brawl out there. And you decide to go for it in that situation. What did you think of the play call in that moment? And what have you thought of Aaron Glenn? To start with that, what did you think of the play call in that moment?
The play call, I didn't like going for it. I like the way they set it up. Like, okay, 2nd and 6 run, 3rd and 4 run, 4th and 2 pass. Like, I like that series. I don't like the idea of going, like you said, it's 10-7. Your defense is playing great. Own 42 is a little shit. Like maybe 10 yards later or 15 yards later, if you're on Baltimore's 42, sure. But I just think you just gave them too short a field there. My guess is that Aaron Glenn felt like the momentum. Ravens had just scored. My guess is he felt like the defense was losing its grip on the game. I've seen games where coaches, including Brian Daboll, they just kind of like get emotional and they're like, no, we're going for it here. And it's like, no, that's not. 90% of the time you're reading off like, preparation, chart, analytics, what to tell you to do. And then all of a sudden you just make an emotional decision. I wonder if that's what happened here.
So when you look at this in the bigger picture of some of the decisions Glenn has made throughout the season, I mean,
Not consistent.
and does it make you feel better or worse? I mean, again, the record plays into it here about the fact that this is the guy leading your team moving on, because we just said that he'll be here. Tanner Engstrand might not be.
I think you could make the argument for both. I'm not sure which I'd make. I hadn't thought about it that way. Like, you can make the argument that it makes you feel better because, like, okay, he's like learning from not being aggressive, so he's growing in the job. And like, I'm a huge proponent of when you're 2-9 or 2-10 and you got nothing to play for, be aggressive. Like, nothing's worse than punting when you like conservatively punting when like you got nothing to play. You're playing spoiler. The way to play spoiler is to be aggressive, right? Pull out your bag of tricks like the Giants did. So like, you could make that case. You could also make the case I don't feel good about it because it's not consistent. And like, the number one thing you want to be is consistent. And like, it drives players crazy when they don't know what their coach is thinking. Like, 5 times out of 6, we don't go for this. What's different this time? Why are we going for this? So like, you want to see some consistency, but like, maybe this, if you want to be a super optimist, which isn't my nature, maybe this is the new Aaron Glenn. Maybe we're going to see him maybe he's growing into aggressiveness, and we're going to see this is the start of him being consistently more aggressive. That's the rosiest outlook I could put on it for you, Joe.
You only play the curmudgeon on shows like this and, in columns and occasional radio appearances. Like, I know that deep down, you're a glass half full kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Like,
I always say, Joe, you give me a glass, right? And some people say it's half full and some people say it's half empty. And I say it's 3/4 empty. So.
Oh, all right. Well, we're going to fill up your glass a little bit because we're going to talk about a half full defense coming up after the break here. The Jets found ways to limit Lamar Jackson, at least for a half. Well, no, they limited Lamar pretty much the entire game, but the Ravens offense still put up some points. We're going to talk about it right here on the Gang Green Blitz after the break. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
Welcome back to Gang Green Blitz.
Well, the Jets managed to limit Lamar Jackson on the road down in Baltimore, but it wasn't enough for Gang Green to get a win over the Ravens. Our glass half full NFL reporter for the New York Post, who joins us each and every week here on the Gang Green Blitz, Ryan Dunleavy. Ryan, I know you never thought the Jets were going to win at halftime. However, they were playing well. What did you think of this defensive performance against Lamar Jackson here?
I thought it was a valiant performance. I mean, I don't think this is the same Lamar Jackson. I think we could tell he's running less. He's not quite as explosive. This isn't Lamar in his 2 or 3 MVP peak. But I thought they did a nice job. I thought the play that really killed the defense, to be honest with you, was they were 3/4 of a way to a goal line stand.
Yeah.
Before Derrick Henry's second rushing touchdown. And then on that 4th down, they just got blown off the ball and the sea parted and Derrick Henry could have done a backflips into the end zone. So I thought that was the play that really killed them on defense. But I thought it was a pretty valiant effort by the Jets defense, especially considering, they're only 2 or 3 games here into trading away Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. So I thought it was a pretty good effort. And I think they got did they get 10 quarterback hits? I think they got something like that on Lamar.
When it was all said and done.
No, they got no, that's not true. They didn't get to that. But they pressured him. So it might have been 10 pressures. So whatever it was, Sherwood, 13 tackles. And I thought it was a pretty valiant effort.
So I know this isn't the same Lamar Jackson, obviously, that you're talking about as an MVP candidate, but I still thought there were a couple times that Lamar, got around that first wave and was looking to tuck the ball and run. And the Jets defense seemed really prepared for that. He wasn't able to run when the initial pressure did not get there.
No, I mean, he had 7 carries for 11 yards. So, I mean, that's bad for any quarterback, let alone Lamar Jackson. So, no, I mean, it looked like they knew what to expect. They stayed disciplined. They stayed at home. Where Lamar really gets you is on cutbacks and stuff. But I do think it's important to note that this isn't Lamar at his peak. Like, they didn't shut down Lamar Lamar, 100-yard per game Lamar. They shut down a hobbled Lamar trying to get his team into the playoffs. So,
No.
but I do think for a young defense with a big task, I thought they looked prepared and they stayed at home.
All right. And, that's the difference between winning teams in this league and losing teams in this league. You find ways. I can't remember who it was, but one of the coaches, I think it was Jacksonville's coach, after the win over Arizona, said, we're not going to apologize for wins. And nor should you in the NFL. The local teams need to find ways to actually win. And then
they do a lot of apologizing. Yeah, yes. A lot of apologies.
All right, let's talk about another potential bright spot here for the Jets. You touched on it in the first half of the show, but John Mechie has looked good since coming over in that trade there. When you look at Mechie's performance, how much of this is him making the most of his opportunity, and how much of it is the Jets really just don't have many other options out there?
I think it's both. I think it's both. The Jets, one of the reasons they included Adonai Mitchell in the trade, one of the reasons they cleared out Michael Carter's salary cap space and took Mechie back instead of just a draft pick is because they need receivers. We've been talking about that all year. They went into the season with 1.5 caliber NFL receivers. And so, I think, look, obviously Mechie isn't going to be Garrett Wilson, but maybe he can be a complementary piece. Like maybe he could be a legit number 3 receiver if you go out and get yourself a number 2 receiver. Like, I think he's a guy who had a lot of talent coming out of Alabama. His career obviously got sidetracked by a leukemia diagnosis. Didn't have a lot of opportunity in Philadelphia. And I think he's a guy who can make plays, and the Jets are desperate for guys to make plays. And I think he's a guy with reliable hands. And I think that goes a long way because Adonai Mitchell does not have reliable hands. He's more of a big play. He's more of a big play boom or bust guy. So Mechie and Mitchell are actually nice complements as the newest Jets receivers.
All right, but you think Mechie's ceiling is still going to be a number 3 receiver for this team? You don't think he has more potential than that based on what you've seen so far and just limited opportunities?
Garrett Wilson's the number 1 receiver for this
team. Of course.
Yeah. Would I go into next season with Mechie as my 2 and be looking for a 3? No, I would not. I would go into next season with That's the mistake the Giants made with over evaluating Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt. No, I think you need a number 2 receiver to slide in between Mechie and Wilson. And look, if Mechie is really good too, there's no rule in the NFL. I know we think that in New York.
There is. Only in New York, yes.
There's no rule in the NFL that you can't have 3 good receivers. The kid from Princeton, Andre Yoshivash or whatever, had 650 receiving yards for the Bengals last year playing alongside
T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
And Jamar Chase. You can have 3 good receivers, right? So I think that Mechie can be a 3, and if he ends up playing a high 2, then okay, then great. Then you really have something. But if I was the Jets, I would be looking for a better complement for Garrett Wilson, and I'd be penciling in Mechie as a 3, and maybe even Mechie and Mitchell as a combo 2-3.
Okay. All right. What then is it going to take to keep him here? Because he's not signed through this year.
Well, I think he's a restricted free agent. I looked at that. After last week. So basically, you can just match him. Basically, you can make him an offer, and I think that basically anybody who tries to outbid you or whatever, you have matching rights. So I don't think it's going to take a lot to keep him here. I think he's starting to show signs of progress, but he hasn't exactly shown game-breaking ability that's going to get paid. So I don't think you're talking about a huge contract. I don't think you're talking about a long contract. I think it's you're looking at a very reasonable contract for John Mechie.
All right, so you're putting him on a prove-it deal, 1 maybe 2 years tops.
2 years, yeah, 2 years. So, 2 years. I mean, Darius Slayton's contract before this one, when he first came back to the Giants, was 2 years, $12 million. After his rookie deal was up, I don't know. Sure, that sounds about right.
All right, a piece maybe that'll be here next year is basically what the Jets are looking for at this point. You're a pessimistic guy, as you've reminded us on this episode. So we're going to end on a negative note here, and I feel for him. But Breece Hall has another terrible ending here. he fumbles on the 2-yard line, and before we get into your evaluation, here's what he had to say after the game for the latest miscue.
It stung. Like I said, you never want to fumble. At the end of the day, though, just my mom's always taught me, it's going to be ups and downs, but never let them see you sweat. So hold your head high, keep coming back and getting better. Fortunately, we have more games to play and more opportunities to go win.
Unfortunately, there's been a lot more downs than ups for Breece Hall with the Jets here. This game, I know you knew it was over, but it was still in doubt if Breece Hall goes in and scores there. When you look at that fumble, is that just a case of a guy who's just trying too hard to make a play?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think that. Now, look, he's had fumble problems before. Like, he had 6 fumbles last year. That's a fumbling problem. Like, I looked it up last night when I was watching the Eagles-Cowboys game. Saquon Barkley's had 5 lost fumbles in 8 years. So, Breece had 6 fumbles last year. So he only has 2 this year, but they're both right around the goal line. Those basically count as 2 or 3 fumbles each because you're taking points right off the board. Yep. So he does have somewhat of a fumbling issue, but I do think, to your greater point, Joe, I think that is the case. I think this is a guy who realizes, especially without Garrett Wilson around, that he is the guy. He has to make the plays. So I do think it's a case of trying to do too much and like knowing that, hey, if I get stopped at the 2-yard line, we might end up kicking a field goal. So I do think it's a case of a guy trying to do too much. And, when you try to do too much, you do too little.
When you look at the situation, and obviously we talked about if you weren't going to move him at the deadline, then you better figure out a way for him to be here next year because you didn't get anything for him. But at this point, I mean, for his sake, for the organization's sake, does he just need a change of scenery?
He probably does, but I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, the Jets have control. They can franchise tag him. They can make him an offer that he pretty much has to accept. Like, I think Garrett Wilson needs a change of scenery too. You know what doesn't need a change of scenery is $30 million a year. So,
yeah. Well, he chose to not have a change of scenery. Correct. He could have played out the contract.
So Breece could feel like he needs a change of scenery too until they offer him, $12 million a year, which is good running back money. And then he's not going to need a change of scenery anymore. So, like, yes, to you and I as independent observers, yes, I don't see a world where he's not on the Jets next year.
All right. I think that's good news for Jets fans because he is still extremely talented. And you talk about Mechie not showing that playmaking or game-breaking ability out there. You see it each and every week from Breece Hall. And you look at the guy, how big he is and how well he moves for his size is just unprecedented, I feel like. Go ahead.
I always take it as this. So I talk to defensive coaches and I say, before they see him, like, who scares you on the Giants? Who scares you on the Jets? And like, Breece Hall is always the name. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are the names that come up. I don't know if, and again, I think John Mechie's been really good. I don't know if John Mechie's going to be the answer to that question next August when I ask defensive coaches. I know Breece Hall will still be an answer to that question.
All right. Well, Jets fans, they're usually just scared of their team and the fact that they have to watch another season each and every year. The Jets have solidified yet another losing season. Not officially eliminated from the playoffs, I don't believe, as of yet, like the Giants are. So I guess you can hold out some hope there. And since Ryan is so optimistic, I know he will.
Glass empty. Glass empty.
We're going to pour something in that glass for Ryan, so he'll be back next week, and we hope you will too. Thanks for tuning in for this edition of the Gang Green Blitz. For Ryan Dunleavy, I'm Joe Mauceri. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next week, Jets fans.